Hello, and welcome to the Michigan Melting Pot with your hosts, Aaron,
Eva,
and Hassan.
Today, we're going to walk you through each of our cultures, their traditions with food and special events, and how they've shaped who we've become today.
All right, so to get us started, we're going to talk about some cultural foods. What was your guys' favorite meal growing up, and how did it reflect your culture? Personally, my favorite food growing up was beris yohilib, which is just like rice and meat. It's the type of meat they use is typically like goat or lamb, and they use different types of spices. Like, for example, they use cardamom, which is like a type of spice which is made from seeds of different plants, as well as cumin. And like this food really reminds me of home and family gathering, and it like really connects me to my Somali heritage, even when I'm very far away from my extended family.
I love that. Growing up, my dad would always make ackee and saltfish with fried dumplings for like special occasions. We'd always have it on Christmas Eve, and fried plantain. And I remember growing up with my grandma, she taught us how to make dumplings and how to fry plantain and how to know when it was all ready. And it was really exciting and a great way to get close with family.
For me, I was a really picky eater growing up, so I always loved when my grandma made roti and dal, which is a very basic Indian meal. It's basically just flatbread and lentils, but I would always ask for it when I went over there, and for me, it just reminds me of home.
Oh, that's so exciting. I feel like we all have connections to family and food. That's really cool.
What does your guys' foods taste like? Like, describe it a little bit.
The funny thing about ackee and saltfish is that ackee kind of looks like scrambled eggs. So we would have these things where we would like bring in our cultural foods to school, and I'd have to tell my friends, like, guys, it's not scrambled eggs. It kind of looks like it, but it's a fruit, so it presses in your mouth a little. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like bright yellow, and then saltfish is just like a really salty fish.
For me, roti is just like a very plain bread. Like, you can eat it with anything. I've made pizzas out of roti. I've made sandwiches out of it. It's one of like the staple Indian foods in my opinion. And then dal, it's basically just lentils. It's like a soup. You can eat it with or without roti, but I always took like the rotis and would dip them in the dal and then pick it up and eat it with my hands. And that for me is also a big cultural thing, eating with my hands, because I remember at school sometimes people would get bugged by it. So having to do that with roti and dal in order to have the meal at all is just something that I think is really cool.
Hassan, did you have any school-related food things happen to you?
I mean, I went to a very, like, my school is like full of people from my culture. Like, there was a lot of Somali kids at my school growing up.
Gotcha.
Like, from K through 8. So like everyone pretty much felt the same about it, you know what I mean? Like, if they see you eating some like rice with your hands, for example, even though you typically use a spoon, they're used to that, you know what I mean? That's what they do at home. That's what they always do. And it's also nice, like, everyone brings in cultural food sometimes, you know what I mean? Being able to like have the food that you eat at home and also eat it at school is cool. And yeah, like, even because we typically always ate like food within our culture at my school, like K through 8, on special days they would actually like just bring us pizza and things like that, you know what I mean? So yeah, get us closer to American culture. On the topic of American foods, how do you guys feel like you balance cultural foods with like the more common American foods, you know what I mean?
I would say for me, my grandparents live very close by, and they bring us food like every single week. So we're always stocked up on a bit of Indian food. But for my mom, who moved here when she was 2 and grew up in the U.S., a lot of her recipes are actually very like Americanized foods. Like, she'll make us a chili and like other similar things. So I kind of get that balance with my mom's cooking. It's a lot of the time very American, and then my grandparents will drop off Indian food for us. And yeah, I kind of get that cultural mix that way.
That's really cool. I feel like a lot of my cultural foods on my dad's side, we have a lot around like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and it's interesting how they've sort of wrapped themselves up in a very Americanized holidays as well, just because Thanksgiving is not any kind of Jamaican holiday. But then on my mom's side, we're like African American through and through. We have like silly little familial food traditions. Like, we have clam dip we eat every single holiday, which is as horrifying as it sounds. It's just cream cheese, clams, Worcestershire sauce, and lemon juice. But it's delicious. And it's one of those where it's like the foods that I have around holidays are so widespread. And so then, like in my everyday, I think I end up eating a lot of like Southern food just because I'm from Georgia. But then holidays are really when like my cultural foods come out.
That's what's up. Yeah, me personally, like my mom would always cook Somali food, especially for like dinner and breakfast and things like that. So like whenever we'd go out for lunch, I'd always try to get us to get like some sort of American food, you know what I mean? Like pizza, we'd go out for like pizza or something, or like get some burgers. So yeah, growing up, I guess I just learned to enjoy both, but the Somali dishes kept me connected to my roots, you know what I mean? Like especially since like I'm so far away from home. Do you guys like feel like you have any foods from your cultures that you wished more people knew about? You know what I mean? Like me personally, we have anjera, which is like similar to Ethiopian anjera, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's like a soft, like tangy bread. You can eat it with like pretty much everything. You know what I mean? Mainly with like su, which is like a soupy thing. You know what I mean? It's like a stew, and you can also eat it with breakfast foods like with honey and butter. Also, we have something called melawah, which is also a type of bread, but you eat it with like sweet foods. You usually add like sugar onto it. It's very nice.
Yum. I remember growing up, it's always been one of my favorites and it still is, but like curry oxtail or jerk oxtail, it's so good, but when you say oxtail to people who aren't from the Caribbean, they don't really get it. It sounds horrifying, but it's so yummy. And it was one of those foods where like if my friends were feeling courageous, I'd be like, you should get the oxtail, but most kids I knew growing up would never try it, but that's always been one of my favorites.
That's so cute. For me, I would say it was probably an Indian dessert called gulab jamun, it's relatively well known. A lot of Indian restaurants sell it, but like it's basically just a little Indian donut and you dip it in olive oil and it's so delicious. And I just feel like honestly, it could be a really popular dessert if like it were pushed more. And I don't know, I always get it whenever I can, and like my grandparents will make it for me. So I think that's like the cultural staple I think more people should try.
Yum.
Have you guys like ever given or like shared a cultural food with someone from another culture? And like how do they react when you gave it to them? Like usually whenever I give my friends sambusa or stuff, that's like a super popular one, sambusa. Have you guys ever had that?
I don't think so.
It's like a bread and they put meat in it. Sometimes they add like rice, they add like different, you can have like fish in it. You can put beef, chicken. What my mom cooks is she mainly puts like beef inside of it, and they put like they put spice filling inside of it, and they make it really, really crispy. So yeah, they make it really, really crispy. It tastes really good. You guys should try it. Usually when I give it to my friends, they really enjoy it. It's a super popular. It's like a super popular food. Like I give to people whenever I recommend them some sort of Somali food.
I mean, I think everybody likes fried plantain. I like if I ever go to a Jamaican restaurant, I'm like, I'll get some and you should have some too. I also like curry goat. Truthfully, I don't think I've had any friends try curry goat, but I think it's yummy. Maybe you guys will have some sometime.
I'm trying to think because a lot of my like hometown friends are Indian. I'm trying to think on the Mexican side too. A lot of that, when I share that, it's foods they've had before, just because like there's a lot of Mexican restaurants in the area. So I know one time we did a Friendsgiving with my friends, and my grandma wanted to pitch in and cook some food for all of us. So she brought us back like roti and dal again. She gave us some ghosts, more gulab jamun, actually, samosas. She basically made us like a little Indian feast. And I know my friend had never tried samosas before, and that was really, I was kind of shocked because I thought that was a pretty like, I didn't realize not as many people had tried that since it's such like a big part of my life. So for her trying it for the first time, it was really nice to see because she really liked them. And like every once in a while we'll make samosas together now, so it's really cute.
That's awesome.
I think some samosas and sambucas are the same thing. So it's cool. It's like a food which is popular in like many different cultures. I've heard of it in Indian culture, in Somali and Ethiopian culture, even like in Arab culture. They have sambusa. They call it sambusa as well. I think so. It's cool to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't even realize they were the same thing.
Yeah.
So now that you say it, yeah.
Yeah, like thinking of how I described it and how you talked about it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, because it's like a bread and then meat in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have oh, I'm literally blanking. But it's so interesting how every culture has their own bread and their own bread with meat in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It's just such a staple across the board.
Even with like my Mexican side, we have like burritos and whatnot. Just like
exactly.
it's fun to mess around with.
What's your favorite food from your Mexican side?
Enchiladas. My grandma, she had a cookbook that she gave to my dad, but my dad was never really the cooking type, so he actually gave it to me.
Same.
And one of the first things I tried to make was enchiladas. And okay, it actually went very badly at first because this was over COVID and I was 14, but I tried several more times, and I would say that like my enchiladas now are one of the best things I can cook. It's
Work.
yes. I don't know. I think that's my favorite Mexican meal now because I can make it and my grandma had her own recipe. So it's like near and dear to my heart again, like roti and dal. So
That's so exciting. I remembered, guys. They're patties. Beef patties, chicken patties, delicious. I mean, truthfully, I have no idea how to make them, but you can get them at any Jamaican restaurant.
Was there like, did you guys find any foods that you didn't really appreciate when you were a kid, but like growing up you began to love it? Like, for me, it would probably be maraq, which is a type of stew. It's made from vegetables and meat. When I was a kid, I didn't really like it, but like now as I grew up, I grew to enjoy like its depth of flavors. Probably because when I was a kid, I just didn't like vegetables in general.
Growing up, if I was ever in Florida, where like most of my Jamaican family lives, there would always be some kind of soup on the stove, and it was just soup. Nobody told you what was in it. It was just soup. And I think as a kid, that was daunting. It was very scary. But as an adult, it's exciting to just have the food that your family wants to make for you, regardless of what's in it, and just to know it's going to be delicious, and like without needing to know, because it was made with love and history and so much joy.
that's so cute. That kind of reminds me of how a lot of the stuff my grandma cooks, she has her own like secret recipes for it. So we don't really know what goes into it. We just eat it, and that like makes it better almost, honestly. I would say, I guess for the food, I didn't eat much as a kid. There's an Indian drink called lassi that I love now.
Yes.
Yes. I used to be very adverse to lassi, and I don't really know why. It's because I think someone gave me one that just I didn't like for the first time, and then I never tried a different flavor, and it took me a really long time to get that back into my palate, even though it's basically just like a smoothie. So yeah, that's kind of my little story.
That's what's up. Does your guys' culture have any traditions around food? Like you had certain meals for holidays or like special occasions? Because a big holiday or special occasion in Somali culture is Ramadan, where you pretty much fast for the whole month, and it's nice because like every day you have something new to eat. Like for us, we always had special dishes to break our fast, like dates, soups, even sambusas, maraq, which I talked about earlier. And on the holiday right after Ramadan, which is Eid, we had even more special dishes. We had foods from different cultures, not just Somali foods. We'd have food from like Arab culture. We'd go out for lunch and dinner at different places. Like we'd go to like American restaurants. Sometimes we go to Mexican restaurants, and we'd bring traditional sweets like halwa, which is a sweet which is actually made from oil, which sounds kind of crazy, but it's red. It's super sugary. It tastes really good. So yeah.
Yum.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have some very similar traditions because my family also celebrates Ramadan and Eid. And for Ramadan, whenever we broke our fast, it would be kind of similar to what you said, a soup, some samosas, and like some fruit or vegetables on the side. And like I currently don't fast, but I know when my grandparents do, like I've been over there and I watch them cook up the meals for later. And that's just been a big part of my life when, like, even when I wasn't fasting, just helping my grandparents when they were, because they're very dedicated to that. And then for Eid, also very similar. We would have family from all around the country come into Michigan, which is kind of our little like family hub, and it's always like a huge celebration where people get like lots of food. And one thing we do is we give Eid money to the kids, which means that
Bro, I would always get so excited for Eid because I used to get like so much money. You go to like all the elders and stuff. You're like, you know, you go to them, suck up to them a little bit, try to get some money at the end. You know?
Yes, they for us they bring it in envelopes, and by the end of like Eid, I have like a stack full of envelopes in my hand, just
That's
filled with
awesome.
money. And like my parents were very smart about it. When I was a kid, the money would get taken, put into my college fund.
Perfect.
That was so it's currently being spent on my education, but even then, just like the idea of getting money was so fun. And like it still is. I'm still very excited every time I walk into like the Eid celebration and I see the envelopes piling up.
That's so exciting. We didn't, honestly, I think because like just my family is a big blend of like African American traditions and Jamaican American traditions. A lot of our food related Jamaican traditions are like my dad trying this recipe he remembers from when he was a kid and making us all try it when it ends up really bad. Like he is the cook in our family, but he is not the baker in our family. But for a couple years he'd been trying to make these various like Jamaican cakes. Like I remember 2 years ago it was this spice cake, and that one actually ended up pretty good, and I think it was my grandma's recipe, and that's why it ended up really yummy. But last year he tried this like, I don't remember what it was called, but it was this like bread cake, and it was like light brown, and it was really bad. But we all had to try some of it, and it took him like 3 days to admit that it really just didn't taste good. And I think he had like 3 pieces of it before he was like, okay guys, I think you're right. But a lot of our food related like holiday traditions, aside from just like cooking the food that we normally would have, are like my dad trying out recipes he remembers from when he was a kid.
Who's the baker? Are you the baker?
I am the baker.
You're the baker?
Yes. It would either be me or my mom. We have a lot of recipes on my mom's side that have been passed down for a while.
Okay. Like what?
Like we do this lemon cake every Christmas, and it's really it's like a lemon sponge cake, but then you put jelly mix in it, and there's like a special glaze we put on it every year, and we make it in a bundt cake, and it's the best lemon cake I've ever had. And so like it used to be my grandma that would make it, and then for a while it was my mom that would make it, and now I'm the one that makes it.
Aw.
That sounds delicious. Like Jello
Gotta
mix.
try
Yeah,
that.
Oh my gosh.
it's yummy.
Yeah. The other, since I kind of went into talking about non-food related traditions, the other food related tradition I can think of that like I hold really near and dear to my heart is when my family sits around the tal to eat, which is basically like instead of sitting at a table or anything, we all sit on the floor around like a large circular kind of, it's almost like a not a cutting board. How would you describe it? It's like a floor table.
Okay.
And everyone just like eating with their hands, and kind of the food is for everyone. You don't have your specific like here's your plate, here's her plate. It's the plate is everyone's, and it's just really nice to be able to eat around and like have all of the foods that are being served. And in general, I think that's just a really fun family tradition.
That's awesome.
That kind of reminds me of Somali culture, like during family gatherings, so like whenever we eat on Eid or on Ramadan, we'd sit on like it wouldn't be like a type of table on the ground. It would be like a certain type of rug, which is also a rug which you can pray on afterwards, because we'd break our fast and then go pray Maghrib right afterwards. And then it was nice. All the food would be on like a single tray, or like a few separate trays and plates, and everyone would just eat with their hands. Everyone would eat together, which is cool.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to use this segue to get us into some traditions.
Ooh.
We're going to start with funerals and weddings. In African American culture, at weddings, we jump the broom. It comes from a time when enslaved people weren't allowed to get married legally, so they would jump the broom to signify the marriage itself. Do you guys have any traditions like that in your cultures as far as weddings go?
What do you mean jump the broom?
There would be a literal broom placed on the ground. And so, like, now how it manifests is like everyone that I've seen get married, like my aunts and my uncles, after vows are exchanged and after rings have been exchanged, then a broom is placed on the ground. The two people getting married hold hands and jump over the broom together. Aww. And it's one of those things that's like it's been passed on for years and years, and every wedding in my family has had it. And so I'll probably keep that tradition going as well, but it's literally just jumping the broom. It's kind of similar to Jewish weddings when they like stamp on the glass. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Somali weddings are super lively as well. They have a bunch of traditional dances. They also like have some women sing and they recite poetry, and then they do this thing. I don't want to try it, but it's kind of like clicking your tongue. It's like a super loud noise. It's like something like that. That sounds. I did it horribly. You know what I mean? But You'd also have like elders in the family. Just like talk to the people that are getting married, give them some wisdom, things like that. We'd read Quran. You just have the whole family to come together, things like that.
For Indian weddings, at least the ones I've been to, they're always incredibly extravagant. It's 3 days long. I think they're pretty well known for how expensive but like lively they can be. For the Indian weddings, the bride wears red, and I just think it's really interesting because I feel like in a lot of other cultures they wear white, but like I really like the vibrance of the red personally, and I really want to do it for my own wedding eventually. And for the ones I've been to, it's honestly just it's the most wonderful time because you will have every family member you have ever met there, and every like extended person, everyone who's made contact with the bride at any point will be at that wedding. And like the most recent one, I actually didn't make it because I was out of the country, but there was a huge family wedding with, I want to say, about 750 guests.
Oh my god.
And it was hosted at this like huge theater, and the food was amazing, and I know people were dancing, and it was 3 days long. Some people went out of the country afterwards to celebrate more, and just in general I feel like Indian weddings are like that. You're going to be dropping a lot of money on it, but in the end I feel like it's worth it, and it's such like a fun experience.
That's awesome. Do you think you want to have a wedding that extravagant?
See, I have to consider that because like when I go to the weddings, I'm like, this is so amazing and fun, I want to do this, but I can imagine how stressful it is for the bride beforehand, because like managing 750 people, like that is a huge task. So I might do it how my mom did it, where she did like a day of an Indian wedding, and then for my dad they did more of a not really traditional Mexican wedding, but more of an Americanized wedding, because he grew up in the US, so that's kind of his like what he took on for it. And so since they did both sides, I might do that too.
That's really cool. Do you think you want to follow some of your wedding traditions, Hassan?
With what you said with Indian traditional weddings being super big, now that I think about it, our weddings are also super big, and whenever I come from a wedding, I'm like, there's no way I want to be the center of attention of all this, you know what I mean? So part of me is like, I kind of want a small wedding, mainly just like super close family and super close friends, instead of like having extended family. But at the same time, like you also have to consider the other person getting married, you know what I mean? Maybe they want something big. So I'm probably just going to gravitate towards whatever they choose. If they want something small, I'm cool with it. If they want something big, I'm cool with it. I'll just go with the flow pretty much. What about you?
I think I'll definitely jump the broom. It's kind of important to me. I think it's one of those things where like I think I'm going to end up marrying someone who is marrying me and all of my ancestors and all of me. And so I think that they'll be excited to jump the broom with me, you know? It's one of those, like, you're coming with me, I'm coming with you sort of things.
That is adorable.
But completely other end of the spectrum, let's talk about funerals. In Jamaican culture, we have what we call dead yard, which is, like, the day before the funeral. It's also called nine night. I was researching it earlier today because I couldn't remember what it was called. But I've only ever been to one dead yard, and it was for my great aunt, and it was like the first funeral I ever went to in Jamaica. And it's essentially this big gathering of like everyone who knew this person, and they come and tell stories about who they were, what they meant to them, and also just like reminisce on the past. And I was so young that I just remember like people dancing and music playing and like meeting a million cousins I'd never met before and hanging out with my family. But at funerals in America of my Jamaican relatives, we have what's called a repast the night before, which feels really similar. It's just like, but it's a little less music oriented, but it has the same sort of culture of celebrating and talking about them and sharing stories. I was wondering if you guys have any culturally specific funeral events or moments.
I know for my family, generally when a funeral happens, they take the body back to India for the funeral so they can be buried like back in basically the motherland. I've actually never been to one of the funerals because of that, because I was generally pretty young and they couldn't really drop everything, take me to India for 2 days and then bring me back. So a lot of it was like, I would hear bits and pieces of what happened at the funerals, how things were, but like in general, I've never actually experienced one myself. And on the other side, on my dad's side, I have experienced one of those funerals. I do remember I was very young at the time. I just remember they had a lot of like pictures on the wall of like her life, and like they did kind of have something of an ofrenda, which is like, you know, you've probably seen it in like Day of the Dead movies and whatnot. They had like dedications to her and like her ancestors and whatnot, and that's kind of what I remember of it. Besides that, like it was a very long time ago, so that's my cultural view of funerals so far.
For sure. Yeah, and in our funerals, typically you have to bury the person within the first 3 days of their death. So you take the person's body, you wash it, of course, and then you bring it to a mosque, and they do a prayer on the person. It's like a 2 rak'at, which is like 2 times you go up and then go down, pretty much. And it's cool because you do it at the mosque. Usually you have a few hundred people in attendance. You have people from your family and friends and things like that, people who were close to the person that died. But at the same time, they do the prayer right before one of the 5 main prayers in Islam. So there's also like a bunch of other people which were just coming there in general just to pray one of the 5 main prayers in Islam. So it's cool because you have like a bunch of people over there, and then at the end you take them to the funeral. You take them to the graveyard, and then you do another prayer on them. It's called janazah prayer, and yeah, it's very nice, very honorable for the person. And I guess the steps that they follow is similar to like the steps in place for Islam, because Somalia is such a religious Muslim country. Like I think 99.9% of people over there follow Islam. Pretty much everyone over there follows Islam. So we literally just do what exactly was set in place in the religion, kind of. Yeah. And then there's also like some small other things, you know what I mean? Like they have food after the funeral. I don't know if you guys have seen memes about it, but yeah, they have food after the funeral.
We have food after our funerals too. We always call it a repast.
Yeah.
I was wondering the same thing, just because ours is like, it's big. It's like, it's a full meal. You sit and you talk and you laugh, and it's joyful. I was wondering what that looks like in y'all's cultures.
It's kind of like, I feel like it's just to bring up the vibes, you know what I mean? Like the person just died, but you get everyone that knows them together to like kind of celebrate their life.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of cultures, like death isn't the end. Also, it isn't the end, and funerals are supposed to be to celebrate the person, not mourn their passing. It's to celebrate the type of person they were, the type of people they surrounded themselves around.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any food traditions around funerals, Eva?
I would have to like talk to my parents more about that. Actually, I might ask them that question when I get home, because I'm planning on visiting this weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's like a good question for me to find out, because I've actually never been told.
Totally. Sort of similar to what I asked you guys about weddings, but I was wondering if any of those cultural traditions surrounding funerals you were thinking about continuing yourselves. I know that, like, when my parents pass, I'm going to have to talk to my dad about what he wants as far as repast, dead yard goes, but I have a feeling repast is just something we always do in my family, and sort of dead yard has turned into, like, the viewing beforehand, and I think those are all things I want as well, just because I like the idea of my family getting together and it being joyful that everyone's together even after I'm gone. And I think my dad would probably feel the same way. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I definitely, mainly because like what we do is rules outlined by the religion, and because my parents are heavily religious, I'm definitely gonna follow. I'm gonna follow that tradition for when they pass, and I'd imagine they, or the people around me would do the same for when I pass over as well. I mean, yeah, I would want them to like, I wouldn't want it to like be a complete day of sadness. You know what I mean? It's like you got to celebrate what I did. You know what I mean? What I accomplished. So yeah.
Oh yeah, and kind of again, I think definitely I want to do the pictures thing that my grandmother did, just because like I honestly I really love taking pictures, and I know my parents have lots of amazing photos, so just putting those up for everyone to see, that's like very important to me. And then like once I ask about the other traditions, I think I'll like see what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah,
you know?
That's awesome. Alrighty. I was wondering if you guys have any special birthday celebrations. Because in my culture growing up, I didn't have any. If there are any Jamaican-specific birthday celebrations, I don't know about them. And African-American culture doesn't really have, like, specific birthday celebrations. But I remember going to people's bat mitzvahs growing up and, like, seeing people's quinceañeras. And I kind of wanted one myself, but I didn't have any related to my culture. I was wondering if you guys did.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. There's not any specific special birthday traditions in Somali culture. I guess they just think of it as another day, you know what I mean? Even like my birthday was on the 3rd, like 10 days ago or something like that. And like
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We didn't like really do anything special. My sister just gave me a regular gift. My brother just gave me a gift, and when I was growing up, we didn't really do anything either. They just treated it like it was a regular day. They might like buy me when I was a kid, they might just like buy me a game or some Pokemon cards because I used to love Pokemon. And yeah, that was literally it.
So on my mom's side, actually, we have something interesting. I know there's more cultural significance behind this, but we have something called a coconut birthday. That's what we refer to it as. And it's basically like a second birthday. I think it's based on like some sort of either Muslim calendar or like a like lunar calendar instead of the solar calendar. And it's a day every year where we just go to my grandma's house, and she takes a coconut actually and puts it across my head depending on how old I am. Aww. And then you get 2 pieces of chocolate and you just spend the day with your family. So that's like exciting. My second birthday. And it actually doesn't come on the same day every year. My grandma is the one who tracks it all. So she always will call me and say, "Happy coconut birthday." And that's when I know it's time to head over and like
it's like a surprise kind of.
Awesome. It is a little bit of a surprise. I feel like that's another thing I want to learn. I want to ask her like what is behind the coconut birthday, because even when I like look it up and stuff, I've noticed like it's might just be a family thing even when my just because I don't know anyone else who does that sort of tradition, but yeah. Besides that, though, I did want a quinceañera, but sadly, my 15th happened over COVID.
No!
Yeah, it was a little bit of a letdown. We thought about maybe doing like a makeup quinceañera later on, you know, just to like still get the experience. But I was kind of thinking at that point, like, it's a very expensive celebration, and I could do my quince or I could get a car. And
there you go.
You know,
the long-term choice.
Yeah.
Wait, based off what you said about it being maybe based off like a Muslim calendar, it might be the lunar calendar, because in Islam they use the lunar calendar.
Yeah.
And it's like every year it's 11 days previous. You know what I mean? So like if your birthday was November like 12th. Like next year would be November 1st, and it's
That
like changes
might
every
be how
year.
it is.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I've always been like, this is like the first time I've really thought about it, because it's always just been like a part of my life, because they've been doing it since I was a little kid, so I never
Yeah.
really thought more deeply about it. So this is really interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. I that coconut birthday thing is such like a grandmother who knows things that the rest of the family doesn't. And I want for you to know how to do that so your grandkids can have the same feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
I know my
awesome.
mom knows like how it works, and she's already planning like to like coconut my kids. She's like, I'm gonna sit outside them and like whatnot.
That's so
It's
fun.
exciting.
I love that. This is making me think of we don't have any traditions like that, but we do like every year, like the number of candles on your cake is how old you are plus one to grow on. And I know that that's like my great grandmotherism that's just been passed down for a long time.
That's what's up.
That's
Yeah.
cute. I feel like newer like traditions like that are just within your family. They're so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, I feel like they're more symbolic. You know what I mean?
I
And they're
agree.
like closer to your heart. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about like our past traditions and how it impacted us in our childhood. How does your culture impact you guys here at Michigan?
So I actually live at home. My family like lives in the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area.
Oh.
So I still like I'm literally at home. I'm still like doing all the cultural stuff that I've always done growing up. You know what I mean? But at Michigan, I have like tried to join like certain clubs, and I try to like make friends with people within my culture. Like I recently joined the East African Student Association, which is cool. It's just made up of like literally just different people just from East Africa, so it's nice talking to people from the same region as I am. You know, it's very cool. Yeah, that's literally it,
That's
honestly.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't joined any clubs. It's crossed my mind, but I honestly think I just end up so busy every semester that I never end up with time. But I found myself like making a lot of Caribbean American friends, and that's been really cool. Just like
cool.
a lot of Caribbean American friends in my department and outside of my department that I've met through theater related things. And it's been kind of fun because it's like at first it's just like, okay, yeah, we're a bunch of Black kids and we like theater, and like that's enough to bond over. And then it's like, oh wait, your family's from Jamaica too? Like we have this extra little thing.
Little bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to realize that you have something that's not so obvious in common with someone.
That's what's up.
I guess for me, since I'm a freshman, this is my first semester, I've kind of been looking at like, I've looked at IASA and like a few of the biracial clubs. I was a little too busy this semester to join, but I'd
Yeah.
really love to get more involved with like cultural things on campus. And I know they have like a lot of events where you get to experience your culture, other cultures, just like around the holidays. Like I know there were some like, Mexican events around Day of the Dead, and I was a little sick that evening, so like I couldn't go to any of them, but I would love to visit sometime. And just in general, I feel like next semester I'm planning to run for DEI chair of my
cool.
business frat, and you get to plan like a DEI event where you get to bring in a bunch of cultural food and share it with people, and I'm really excited for that because I want to go home, cook with my grandmother, and then bring
Yeah.
it back for everyone.
Absolutely.
And so that's something I'm really looking forward to. So yeah, I feel like this semester I haven't gotten to share my culture as much, but I'm hoping in the next coming semesters I'll be able to do a little more.
That sounds great. That's so much fun. I know. I literally forgot about that. But I just had a Friendsgiving with some of my friends, and we all like pitched in something, and I brought fried plantain. It was really fun.
That's what's up. Everyone brought like cultural foods or just anything in general.
Just like anything in general,
Okay,
but
that's
just some
what's
of
up.
them ended up being cultural.
Okay.
It was fun.
So kind of on that, like the fried plantains and just traditions in general, how do you continue your traditions here at Michigan? Like, are you celebrating holidays, all that?
I think I end up continuing my traditions a lot through like just staying in touch with my family and like making sure I'm on the phone with my extended family frequently enough to like hold all of our traditions with me. And then a lot of my traditions honestly are wrapped up around holidays where we go home anyways. So I end up like participating in a lot of my cultural traditions with my family at home and not so much here, which is kind of interesting. But then there is the side of like making food when I can and just like connecting in that sort of way.
Definitely. You like make your own cultural food?
Every once in a while. Honestly,
So-
not that frequently, but every
Uh-huh.
once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, for me, as I mentioned, I live at home, so I'm doing the same exact things I did growing up. So nothing really changed for me. As I mentioned, you know, I'm trying to join like I've joined cultural clubs. I'm trying to join more cultural clubs, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, since it's my first semester, a lot of our traditions haven't hit yet, so I'm kind of waiting to see how I'll do that. But we did have, I think I mentioned it earlier, my grandma's 80th birthday party.
Yeah.
Oh, happy 80th.
Yeah, it was really fun. We got a bunch of our family together. Like, people came from out of Michigan to come visit. And for me, it was kind of just like people picked me up from college to go hang out with the family. And I feel like for me, in my Indian culture and in my Mexican culture, family is so important. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, it was a nice reminder that, like, even though I'm on campus and, like, it's a little bit harder to stay in tune with my culture, like, my family's still all around me and we're still, like, able to just drive down to a cabin and have, like, a nice birthday dinner.
Totally. That's awesome.
So I guess this goes on to one last question. How do you think Michigan has impacted how you view yourself culturally? Has it changed it?
I think Michigan has sort of reminded me how much of my culture impacts my art. Just because I'm a musical theater major, a lot of what I do here is wrapped up around in like how who I am as a person impacts the kind of art I want to create. And I think being here, I'm sort of in a bit of a bubble. I get to do a lot of things that have a lot to do with my own identity, and like sharing my identity with other people who live similar lives and also people who live really different lives. And I feel very lucky in that way because I honestly think I'm closer now to my culture than I have been, even though I'm kind of further away from my family. But I'm just like more personally in touch with it because I'm relating it to my art in a lot of ways. And so that's been very cool and like really gratifying and exciting. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, oh yeah, I mean, I guess the same thing goes for me as well. But at the same time, being in like such a diverse area, especially since growing up, the place that I was at, I grew up going to like Islamic schools and things like that. So, everyone around me was pretty much from the same cultural background as me. Being able to like see all the different cultures has reminded me like how different my culture is from others and like how cool that is, and making friends with people from other cultures and learning about their culture is also something super cool. And even classes like this one help remind me like the importance of cultural appreciation and being appreciative of your own culture and other people's culture. So yeah.
That's awesome. I would say for me, Michigan has been very culturally validating because I came from a very homogeneous school. I think it was like 97% white. I want to say like 2% Latina and then like 1% Asian, African American. So it was like, it was very tough to express myself culturally growing up just because everyone thought it was foreign and strange. Coming to Michigan, I've met a lot of people who are from the same cultures as me. And surprisingly enough, I was a little worried because, you know, I'm a mixed woman. And a lot of the time, there are people who are against that sort of thing or tend to look down on you for it. But I've met a lot of people who love to share their culture with me and are like, willing to like teach me things because I had a little bit less of an involvement growing up, and I feel like I've become more culturally enriched here because of that. And it's been really nice to like learn about more of the traditions that my family did, and I've been able to like call my parents and talk about like, oh yeah, did you do this growing up, did you do that, like how can we integrate that into my life and whatnot. So it's really nice to go to a diverse school and meet people who are the same as you, meet people who are different from you, and just in general be able to learn from that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel really lucky about how big Michigan is. Sometimes like being out in like Gen Pop Michigan, I do feel how wide it is sometimes, but then it's like there are so many people here that you can curate who your friends are, and then you can have like really diverse groups of friends, which is nice.
It was interesting because coming from my school, which is about 15 minutes away, there were about 40 of us who came to Michigan, and I remember I was expecting to see those 40 people every single day
day.
on campus. I thought I would be passing them all the time, but even the ones who go to the same school as me, I don't see them very often. It's not like a bad or a good thing, but it's just very interesting.
So many
how
people.
I feel like I run into them more often than not. I don't know why. And it's crazy because I went to such a small school and only like 10 people from my school ended up coming here. But like literally multiple times a week I see them, and it's so awkward. But you know.
Do you find it like familiar or like nice to see people that you recognize from home? Or
It is cool, but I'm gonna be honest, some people I just don't want to see. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I kind of get that because like all of these people, we grew up together in the same school system for like what 12 years, and they got to see like my middle school phases. They got to see it all. So it's a little hard to act like
You want to get a
nonchalant and cool, and then there's someone standing next to me who knew when I would like talk about anime all the time. So that's just a fun part of being from Michigan in-state.
yeah.
Are we all in state?
No, I'm from Atlanta.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's what's up.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on the Michigan Melting Pot. We hope you enjoyed our podcast today. This has been Erin
Hassan.
And Eva.
talking to you about how our cultures have impacted our time here at Michigan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good rest of your day.
Have a good day, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Good night, everyone.